As I mentioned at the beginning of Mass, today we celebrate the memorial of a saint named Rose Philippine Duchesne. She's not very high up there on the list of famous or popular saints, but she is important for us insofar as she was a missionary to the United States. She was from France. She lived in the late 1700s and early 1800s, and as a little girl, she became fascinated by the Jesuits who came back from America and told people in France stories about the mission to the Native Americans. Their stories intrigued her, and she dreamed of one day being a missionary to the Indians. She joined a religious order, and she stayed in France working, teaching girls, when all of a sudden, at 49 years old, her mother superior asked her if she would go to the United States with several other sisters to work in the Missouri Territory. She realized that her dream was about to be fulfilled. She immediately obeyed and said yes. She took a 10-week voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. She landed in New Orleans, and she began to face the privations of the wilderness of the Missouri Territory of the early 1800s. It wasn't exactly what she was hoping it would be. She spent most of her life there teaching young, white, Caucasian American girls, which really wasn't her dream. Her dream was to evangelize the Native Americans, but she accepted it as God's will and did her best. And then when she was 71 years old, the dream that she had had as a little girl seemed to be about to be completely realized. The Jesuits who were working in Kansas asked the sisters from her order if they would come teach the Native American children in Kansas. She immediately volunteered at 71 years old to go, and she did. Now that was actually a big disappointment for her, for the simple reason that she could not learn the language of the Native American children. She had to learn their Native American dialect in order to teach them. And she tried her very best to do that, but she didn't have a gift for languages. It was already hard enough for her to speak basic English. She simply couldn't learn their language. And so she was forced to resign herself to the fact that she wasn't going to be able to work with those Native American kids as she had always dreamed of. So what did she do? She decided she would spend all day, every day, in prayer for the Native Americans. And that's exactly what she did. She spent at least 8 hours a day on her knees in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And there's this famous anecdote from her life where she's praying in the church in her religious habit as a nun, and she's kneeling down in front of the Blessed Sacrament. In front of some of the Native American children sneak into the church, and they go up behind her very quietly, and she can't hear them. And she's kneeling there, and they take a whole bunch of leaves and they put them on her habit right above where her calf muscles would be as she's kneeling in prayer. And they leave them there arranged just so. They leave the church and they go outside and they play for several hours, and they come back in. And when they come back in, the leaves are exactly where they left them, which means that she didn't get up once and stop her prayer for all those hours that they were outside playing. And for that, the Native Americans gave her a nickname in their language, the woman who prays always. I think there's a really important lesson for all of us in St. Rose. When she felt powerless and helpless to do good, she turned to prayer. And when we feel powerless and helpless to do good, the best place we can turn also is to prayer. We may not have a vote in Congress. We may not be able to be out there on the front lines of our favorite social cause. We may not feel like our voice is heard or valued very much, but nothing can stop us from praying. And our prayer really does have the power to change the world for the better. We'll only see in heaven how much good was done by our prayer. And prayer is one thing nobody can stop you from doing. Even if they take you and arrest you and put you in solitary confinement and put duct tape over your mouth, nobody can stop you from praying or from offering up your suffering. Prayer is something we can always do in all circumstances. So the next time you watch the news and feel depressed or discouraged and wonder what little old you can do to change things, just think of Saint Rose Duchesne, the woman who prays always. Fold your hands, kneel down, and pray, and be absolutely sure that you are making a difference in our world.